There's nothing like it. The excitement of Texas Tech men's basketball. This is KMAC Red Raider Nation's Countdown to Tip-Off.
Back on Countdown to Tip-Off, Texas Tech supposed to play Baylor, as we mentioned today. That game postponed, so instead we look ahead to the 7th-ranked Red Raiders, even though they're probably not going to be 7th-ranked once the polls come out on Monday. But that
optimism.
Well, I'm just saying, they only played one game. They lost against TCU on Monday at 8. Jamie Dixon's Horned Frogs entering today at 4-5 in Big 12 play. They actually have a game this afternoon. Those 4 wins, courtesy of a pair of sweeps against Oklahoma State and Kansas State. Those games spread out for the Horned Frogs, though, because the first meeting between Tech and TCU was postponed. After Monday's contest, these two will actually run it back again on Wednesday in Lubbock. Not an everyday occurrence in conference play unless you're playing the regular season finale and then playing in the Big 12 tournament.
As a coach and player, when the game ends, you kind of have a pretty good feel for what worked and what didn't work. And then one of the challenges or objectives in scouting and recruiting is weeks later when you play that team again, you got to get yourself in that mindset. Like, that's the first thing in recruiting. You have to, like, put your feet back in that game. You got to get yourself back. Hey, guys, do you remember this team? Do you remember what it was like? Do you remember this? Do you remember that? You know, game 2, you see some things that worked for both teams probably be attempted again. You'll see some quick adjustments. Not that you don't always, but it's just like it's on everybody's mind. You know, it's like it's just kind of different.
Don't forget, TCU has lost to America's team in the Missouri Tigers. You'd assume a large part, meanwhile, large, that's the key word, of Texas Tech's game plan will be centered around trying to limit Kevin Samuel inside. You know, he's just casual 6'11", 255-pound junior. He's been a force of nature since he came to Fort Worth. Now, he doesn't light up the scoreboard necessarily with his points per game numbers, but he's a monster on the boards, averaging almost 9 a game, as David mentioned, good for second in the conference. And he's also about as efficient as it gets, shooting 62% from the field. That's actually the worst number of his career.
He's a unique guy. His size, to me, does not define him. That's not the deal. Unbelievable offensive rebounder with his timing, gets his own misses a lot. He's got extremely quick hands on defense, gets a lot of steals, kind of eye-popping numbers for his position, has a calmness and a demeanor about him. He's always been kind of one of my favorite players in the league to watch.
And as we bring back in Phil Mayer, MD. Okay, Phil, so we've talked about Kevin Samuel already. I feel like Chris Beard kind of stole your thunder a little bit here, but you think that blank is Samuel's most unique tool in his skill set?
Playmaking on defense, and Samuel is averaging 1.8 blocks per game and 1.2 steals per game, which puts him in pretty rarefied air. Only a handful of other players in college basketball have those numbers this year. In the last 10 years, the only 2 Big 12 players to put up those numbers besides Samuel were Kadeem Lattin and Freddie Gillespie, 2 pretty good defenders. And Samuel's just a mountain of a man, which makes him a fearsome rim protector. And then, like Coach Beard just said, he has good hands, which allows him to get those steals. Also, like you guys mentioned, chips in on the glass, great rebounding numbers, and shoots a high percentage with most of those shots coming around the rim. There is a fly in the ointment, which is his free throw shooting. He's down at 37% this year, which is Udoka Azubuike territory. So that might be something Texas Tech can take advantage of.
Good news. The Red Raiders can foul a lot. We found out in the last game.
37.1%. Bad at free. Yeah. Write that down.
30. Maybe that'll be 1% bad at free throw. That'll be my headline, maybe.
Exactly.
All right, appreciate it, Phil.
Okay, Phil, let's go right into the Big 12 basketball standings. You got Baylor at the top, speaking of Freddie Gillespie, former Bear. Then after that, it's kind of, this is going to sound monotonous because it seems it's kind of the same thing every single week. You got West Virginia, Oklahoma, Kansas, Texas in those top 5 areas. But let's not forget, Kansas is ranked. Who's ranked, though? America's team.
Yeah, Kansas is not ranked.
Yeah, Kansas is not ranked.
Yeah.
Is that what I not said?
Yeah, you flip-flopped it.
Kansas is not ranked,
which is understandable.
But you know who is ranked?
Who?
America's team, the Missouri Tigers. Okay, let's go to the bottom of the Big 12 standings. Leading the way, Texas Tech, still at 6, kind of in that jumbled pile of a mess in the middle of the Big 12. Then you have Oklahoma State. Then it's the same every week. It's still here. TCU, without a parenthesis, because I forgot. Then Kansas State and Iowa State.
You know what? Bringing it back to America's team, Chuck O'Bannon Jr. plays on this TCU basketball team, probably get drafted later today in pick 3. Chuck O'Bannon's dad played with his brother Ed O'Bannon with UCLA, who beat, I think Tyus Edney drove the length of the court and scored against America's team and went on to win a national championship. That was a long time ago, but we just had to wrap it all back around to Missouri. No longer in the Big 12 Chickens. All right, time for another break here on Countdown to Tip-Off.
This means more, Collier.
Yeah, I know it does all the time. Still to come here, Eric and I tackle some of the topics for today's contest with another edition of Crashing the Boards.
And later, I look to pick a guy who actually plays a full game.